There was a subject number 9. There was a subject number 10. Director Gray's words still hung in the air, thick, poisonous. Lena felt her heartbeat pounding inside her ears. Her feet went cold, as if the floor beneath her had turned to ice. Elias stared at Gray, his eyes no longer filled with anger alone, but utterly shattered. "You kept them?" Elias's voice trembled. "You kept them alive?" Gray lifted an eyebrow, as if the question amused him. "I preserved my masterpieces, Elias," he replied calmly. "All of you are essential pieces in the evolution of mankind. An experiment does not end simply because 2 lab rats manage to escape." Miles under his breath, fury barely contained. Cross let out a low, dangerous But Lena remained silent, frozen, because something else was happening. Inside her mind, a name was beginning to surface, a name that had been forcibly sealed away. Someone from the past, someone who is always there in those fractured memories, running with them, hiding with them, holding their hands. Subject number 10. A small figure with a gentle smile. Someone who used to call her by her name. Lena didn't dare finish the thought. Gray's soldiers began to advance. Miles didn't hesitate. He hurled a flash grenade across the room. "Get down!" A blinding explosion of light flooded the space, disorienting the armed unit. Elias grabbed Lena's arm. Cross secured the critical equipment. Miles fell back last, covering them. They almost reached the side exit. "Do not harm them!" Gray's voice cut through the chaos, sharp, absolute. The soldiers froze, then shifted, forming a tight encirclement instead. Gray stepped forward calmly, without a trace of fear. "You think this is about freedom?" he said coolly. His gaze locked onto Lena. "You believe memory will save you?" Lena straightened, even as her hands trembled. "I want to know who I really am," she said. "Not what you turned me into." Gray's lips curved into a thin smile. "Beautiful words," he replied softly, "for someone who once begged to forget." Lena froze. "What?" Elias stared at Gray, shaken. "You're lying." Gray slowly shook his head, like a patient teacher correcting a child. "No, Elias. You're the one who forgot that part." He stepped closer. "It was Lena who asked for the memory wipe procedure, not me." The air shifted, heavy, suffocating. Miles seemed to stop breathing. Cross went completely still. Elias looked at Lena, not with doubt, but with fear of the answer. Lena shook her head violently. "No, that's not true. I... Her words broke apart as something detonated inside her mind. A new memory shattered through the dark. She saw herself, but not as a frightened child, not bound, not crying. She saw herself standing there, by choice, facing Gray. Her eyes were steady, filled with resolve, even anger. "If I ever remember who I am," her own voice said, cold and sharp, "you will die." Gray, in that memory, laughed. "So you chose to forget." The Lena in the memory answered without hesitation, "I chose to wait for the right time." The memory collapsed. Lena staggered. Elias caught her before she could fall. "Lena, hey, what did you see?" Lena lifted her gaze to Gray. Shock, revulsion, fear, and confusion twisted together, not just toward him, but toward herself. "I chose this." Her voice was barely a whisper. Gray inclined his head slightly, pleased. "Welcome back, subject number 7. Miles finally spoke. "That's impossible. This is manipulation. Lena would never cooperate with him." Gray looked at Miles as if he were transparent, barely worth acknowledging. "Oh, Miles. You still believe she was an innocent victim?" Miles raised his gun again. Gray continued calmly. "You think the 3 of you were the last ones?" "No." His gaze shifted to Elias. "Subject number 8. You were the protector, the stabilizer." Then he turned back to Miles. "And you, Miles, did you really think you were only security and technical support on this project?" Miles froze. Gray smiled, cold, precise. "You weren't a guard. You were part of the experiment." The room went dead. Miles slowly lowered his gun. His hands trembled. "No," he whispered. "I was only assigned to that facility to protect." Gray cut him off. "To observe them." Elias stared at Miles, disappointment and shock colliding in his eyes. "So all this time, you knew?" Miles shook his head frantically, panic rising. "I didn't know everything. I thought I was helping." Lena felt her throat go dry. "So, you knew we weren't normal children?" Miles nodded slowly, unable to meet their eyes. "But I thought your memories were permanently erased. I thought you would never come back as this." Elias stepped forward, fury breaking through. "And you stayed silent?" Miles covered his face. "If I had fought back then, I would have been dead." The air grew heavy, fractured by betrayal, fear, and the painful collapse of trust. Gray clapped his hands once, lightly, decisively, ending the drama. "We're done playing nostalgia." He pointed at Lena and Elias. "Both of you are coming with me." Miles raised his gun again, this time steady. "Over my dead body." Gray smiled, satisfied. "That's the plan." The soldiers lifted their weapons, aiming at Miles. But before a single shot was fired, Cross slammed her thumb onto a remote-like device. Zrat! The entire room shuddered. Lights died. Power cut. Only one door slid open automatically, the rear exit of the server room. Cross shouted, "Run! Now!" Elias grabbed Lena. Miles covered the rear. Cross led the way. In the darkness, Gray only laughed softly. Not in anger, but in victory. "Remember this," his voice echoed, calm and cruel. "You can run, but your memories will always find you." And the last thing they heard before the door slammed shut, "Subject number 10 is waiting." But it only grew more complicated. Their hurried footsteps echoed through the narrow underground corridor. The air reeked of dust and rust, mixing with the sound of panicked breathing. Cross led the way, slamming her palm against manual panels along the walls, forcing emergency passages to unlock one by one. Miles guarded the rear, weapon raised. Every few steps he glanced back, making sure none of Gray's soldiers were following. Elias kept a firm grip on Lena's arm, not just to support her, but to keep her from collapsing under the after effects of the memory activation device. Lena was still disoriented. Her head felt impossibly heavy, the world rippling like layered water, part reality, part fractured memories bleeding through. Cross's voice cut sharply through the chaos in her mind. "This tunnel leads out of the city, but we only have one exit, and it can only be opened once." Elias looked up. "Where?" Cross answered without slowing. under the old docks. Miles let out a low hiss. Damn it, that's the most exposed area. Cross shot him a hard look. We're out of options. After several minutes of running, they stopped inside a small room that looked like it had once been a network service hub. Emergency lights flickered weakly, pulsing like a dying breath. Cross adjusted a holographic map module mounted on the wall. We've got 5, maybe 7 minutes before Gray traces our route. Miles slammed the manual door shut from the inside, securing it. Lena leaned against the wall, struggling to steady her breathing. Elias sat down beside her. For a few seconds, there was only silence. Not a comforting silence, but one heavy with truths none of them were fully ready to face. Finally, Lena spoke. Elias, do you believe I really asked for everything to be erased? Elias looked at her for a long moment. His face was tight with tension, but his eyes were gentle. I don't know the whole truth, he said quietly. But I know one thing. He tilted Lena's face slightly, just enough for her to look directly at him. The person sitting here right now isn't who Gray wanted you to be. You're not his creation. You chose us, not him. Lena lowered her gaze, her voice trembling. What if the person I used to be is far darker than I can imagine? Elias answered without hesitation. Then I'll still stay by your side. Whoever you were then, or who you are now. Slowly, their hands found each other again. But this time, it wasn't out of fear. It was a choice. From across the room, Miles saw it. His jaw tightened. He turned away, hiding something behind his expression. Cross finally drew a long, steady breath. We can't go any further without you knowing one thing. Everyone turned toward her. She activated a new hologram, an old video recording. The footage showed a white experimental room, a young Lena, a young Elias, and another child, a boy with dark hair and sharp eyes far too mature for his age. Cross spoke quietly. This is subject number 10. Lena covered her mouth. Tears surfaced instantly. Elias stiffened, his breathing faltering. Miles stared at the monitor without blinking. Cross continued. His name is Arvin. Lena whispered it, like calling out to a ghost. Arvin. Something inside her snapped into alignment. Soft laughter echoing through a white corridor. A voice promising, I'll come back. Small hands pulling Elias and her apart as soldiers stormed in. The memories hit like a storm. Arvin wasn't just a friend. He was family. Cross went on, her voice heavy. Arvin wasn't just part of the project. He was the core, the stabilizer of your neural link. Without him, your system was never complete. Elias jolted. So, Gray doesn't just want us back? Cross nodded. He wants all 3 of you together again. Miles finally spoke, his voice low with shock. That's not a normal experiment. That's neurological symbiosis. Cross inclined her head. Exactly. 3 minds, 1 shared system. Technology even global intelligence agencies don't possess. A chill crawled up Lena's spine. Her body felt cold all over. What's happening to Arvin now? Cross looked at them with an expression they had rarely, if ever, seen on her face. Fear. If Gray's projections are correct, and your system is beginning to activate. Her gaze settled on Lena and Elias. Arvin isn't waiting. She paused, then said quietly, "He's being prepared." The room fell silent again. Not because there was nothing left to say, but because the truth was too heavy to carry.
A soft alarm chimed from Cross's wristwatch.
"They found our route. We need to move." Miles pulled open a narrow emergency door connected to the final corridor. Elias helped Lena to her feet, but before they left, Lena spoke. "Wait!" Everyone turned. Lena stood upright, steadier, stronger than she had been minutes ago. "I don't just want to run." She looked at each of them in turn. "I want to take Arvin back." Miles blinked, caught off guard. Cross fell silent. Elias placed a hand on Lena's shoulder. "Are you sure?" Lena nodded without hesitation. "He's part of us. And if Gray wants us back, then Arvin is still alive." Miles finally spoke. "If this plan fails, we all die." Lena met his gaze. Her eyes were no longer fragile, but burning. "If we don't do this, we die as hunted animals with no future." Miles swallowed hard. Then he nodded. "I'm in." Cross let out a heavy breath. "You're all insane." Elias gave a faint smile. "We always have been." Cross pressed the final panel. The escape door slid open, revealing a path toward the dark docks in the distance. Night wind slammed into their faces, and far away, Gray's drones began to close in. Lena drew a deep breath. "This isn't an escape anymore." She stepped through the doorway first. "This is the beginning of a war."
Lena's boots slammed against the damp concrete of the dock, the others close behind her. Cold air cut through them, thick with the salty scent of the sea and the metallic rot of old ships moored nearby. In the distance, red lights from approaching drones blinked like a predator's eyes in the dark. Cross pulled down the small black mask attached to his suit. Miles readied his rifle. Elias stayed close to Lena, making sure the distance between them never broke. Cross's voice came flat, precise. "The moment they see us moving toward that ship, they'll attack with everything they've got." Miles flashed a crooked smile. "Perfect. It's been a while since I let some frustration out." Lena stared down the long, shadowed dock. Only one small vessel waited at the far end, its lights blinking faintly. "That ship, is it safe?" Lena asked. Cross nodded. "Sigma-class military craft. Off the radar, but only if we survive long enough to reach it." The first drone arrived. A white searchlight dropped from the sky like an execution beam. "Beep! Target detected." Miles moved first. His shot pierced the drone with perfect precision. A small explosion flared, lighting Lena's and Elias's faces in harsh white. But one drone meant nothing, because after that, 10 more emerged, spreading into a hunting formation. Elias swore under his breath. "Run, now!" They sprinted. Small explosions chased their steps, the wooden planks of the dock shuddering violently beneath them. Cross slammed a device on his wrist. An electromagnetic wave rippled outward. Several drones went dead instantly, spiraling down into the sea. But others stayed airborne. Miles took one out. Elias destroyed another, his throwing knife striking true right into the drone's neck panel. Lena ran in front, not because they told her to, but because something inside her had awakened. An old instinct, not learned, but programmed, sharpened. When the last drone fired, Lena dove sideways, yanking Elias and Miles with her. The energy bolt screamed past, missing Elias's face by centimeters. Nice reflex, Elias said, breathing hard. Lena didn't answer. Her eyes went distant for a moment, as if her memory was locking onto something.
They finally reached the ship. The automated metal door lit up as an LED scanner slid into place. Cross raised her hand toward the panel, but the light flashed red.
Access restricted.
Cross swore under her breath. Miles shot her a sharp look.
Don't tell me you forgot the code. Cross exhaled hard. The access code was changed 3 months ago, and only someone with this project's Neuralink imprint can open it. Slowly, everyone turned toward Lena. She frowned. Me? How would I? Cross cut in. You don't type it. You remember it. Lena stared at the door. Suddenly, something surged through her mind. A voice, a white room, and a boy with a gentle tone. The door code is our favorite numbers. 3 consecutive prime numbers. Lena whispered. 2, 3, 5. The scanner flashed green. The door slid open. Miles stared at Lena in disbelief. How could you possibly remember that? Lena replied softly. Because someone wanted me to remember. The name surfaced without effort. Arvin.
As soon as everyone was inside, Cross sealed the system and powered up the engines. The ship pulled away, leaving the pier, and the city now flooded with drone lights behind them. The night sea stretched wide and dark, endless, like a secret without a bottom. Miles checked his ammunition. Elias monitored the sonar. Lena stood by the control room window, watching the waves catch the moonlight. Elias's voice came closer. Are you okay? Lena didn't answer right away. Finally, she spoke, quiet but certain. I'm not afraid of Gray taking me. Elias frowned slightly, confused. I'm afraid, she paused, that I might be the one who chooses to go back. The words hung in the air, heavy, like a stone sinking into the ocean. Elias stepped closer. He didn't touch her, but his presence was unmistakable. You're not that person anymore, Lena, he said gently. She looked at him. How do you know? Elias gave a faint smile, the kind that only appeared when he was being completely honest. Because the person you're afraid of becoming, his gaze held hers, never hesitated. Lena exhaled, as if a massive weight had lifted, just slightly. But before the moment could deepen, Cross shouted from the navigation chair, You need to see this. They gathered around. On the holographic display, the location of Gray's facility appeared, far to the north, surrounded by frozen seas. And for the first time since the experiments began, Cross pointed to a blinking red dot on the map. Subject number 10. Arvin status active. Connection. Integration imminent. Lena covered her mouth. Her eyes trembled. Miles swore under his breath. Elias clenched his fists. Cross spoke in a low, steady voice. Our objective isn't just to save Arvin. He looked at each of them in turn. We have to stop the integration, before he's no longer himself. Lena stared at the screen, with a look that had never appeared on her face before. Not fear, not confusion, but resolve. Lena's gaze remained locked on the holographic screen as the ship cut through the dark waves of the night. The engine's hum was steady, almost calming, but inside the cabin, the tension was heavier than anything they had felt before. Elias stood beside her in silence. Miles checked his gear with mechanical focus, stripped of emotion. Cross typed rapidly at the navigation console, her movements sharp and precise. At last, Cross spoke. "We can't just storm Gray's facility without a detailed plan. That place isn't just a laboratory. It's a fortress." Miles, sealing his ammo bag. "There's no fortress that can't be breached." Cross slowly turned her chair, looking at them one by one. "That place is protected by multiple layers of security. Autonomous drones, a defensive AI, and augmented troops. This isn't a standard rescue mission. This is..." She paused, choosing the word carefully. "Suicide." Lena met her stare without blinking. "If we don't do this, Arvin is gone forever." Cross held her gaze. Then she gave a slow nod. "I know." Cross activated the digital map of Gray's facility. The structure resembled a futuristic honeycomb, layered and dense, except for one isolated point, separated from the rest of the complex. A red label pulsed over it. Neurocore Chamber. Subject number 10. Elias spoke first. "We enter through the air waste sector. The system likely doesn't have full thermal sensors there." Miles frowned. "So we crawl in through disposal ducts? You're serious?" Elias turned to him, his expression calm but sharp. "If you'd rather walk through the front door, be my guest. Just don't expect me to dig your grave afterward." Miles raised an eyebrow, then gave a small grin. "All right. I like your style." Cross continued. "Once we're inside, we have a maximum of 19 minutes before the system flags an infiltration." Lena nodded. "That's enough." Cross shook her head. "No, it's not." Everyone turned toward her. Cross looked at Lena for a long moment, as if weighing whether she was ready to hear the full truth. Finally, he spoke. "To stop Arvin's integration process, someone has to interface directly with the system." Lena understood immediately. "Me." Cross gave a slow nod. Elias stood up, his voice firm, though it trembled beneath the surface. "No, that's too dangerous. The system was built using your neural patterns. If you connect, Gray could take control of you." Lena faced Elias. "You know there's no other choice." Elias didn't answer, but his right hand clenched tightly at his side, knuckles whitening. As Miles and Cross moved toward the equipment bay, Elias stopped Lena with a light touch on her arm. "Lena," his voice dropped, almost a whisper, "if you enter that system and lose yourself..." Lena cut him off, firm. "I won't lose myself." Elias looked at her more closely. "You can't be sure of that." Lena swallowed, but her voice didn't waver. "I can't lose Arvin again." Elias fell silent. Then, like something inside him finally cracking, he stepped closer, his voice trembling not with fear, but with care. "You're not the only one who lost him," he said quietly. Lena looked at him for a long moment. Silence. Slowly, she raised her hand and touched Elias's face. A small gesture, but heavy with meaning. "I know," Lena murmured. "And that's why I need you to stay with me while I do this." Elias closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again, resolve burning just as strong. "I'm not going anywhere." For a moment, the world seemed to slow. Then Cross's voice cut in from the other room, breaking the spell. "We move in 3 minutes!" They looked at each other, and without another word, they both knew. After this, there was no turning back. They gathered in the small cargo bay. Miles handed a lightweight firearm to Lena. Not heavy, not too technical. Pull the trigger, done. Lena took it,
No hesitation, no tremor. Miles gave a satisfied nod. Looks like your muscle memory still remembers a thing or two. Cross passed a small module to Elias and Lena. This is the neural network tether. If one of you loses signal, the other can pull them back, neurologically. Miles raised an eyebrow. Pull them back? Like a remote? Cross. More like brain CPR, only a lot more painful. Lena allowed herself a thin smile. I can handle it. Miles looked at her. Don't get overconfident. Mental pain isn't like physical pain. Lena replied simply, I've lived with mental wounds for years. I'm not a beginner. Miles fell silent, and for the first time, his expression shifted into respect. The ship finally entered the ice zone. The water grew calmer, yet far darker. A storm loomed on the horizon, clouds moving slowly like swirling ink. Cross reduced speed. From here on, we move silent. The ship's lights powered down, leaving only the glow of holographic screens. Lena took a deep breath. Elias stood just behind her, Miles to her left, Cross at the controls. All four stared ahead into the darkness that hid the facility where everything had begun. At last, Lena whispered, not as a victim, not as a fugitive, but as someone who knew exactly what she had to do. Arvin, hold on. We're coming. The imagined camera seemed to pull back, revealing the small vessel gliding into the vast darkness toward an uncertain fate. And for the first time, Lena didn't feel afraid, only ready. The ship moved slowly through the freezing fog, closing in on a massive structure that rose from the darkness like a sleeping monster. Gray's facility towered before them, a windowless metallic fortress ringed with automated gun towers and patrol drones circling like sharks hunting prey. There were no bright lights, no sound, and that silence made the place feel far more dangerous. Cross lowered the digital periscope and, we're inside the radar blind zone. From here on, everything is manual. Miles let out a long breath and rolled his shoulders. All right, let's do the most carefully planned, stupid thing we've ever done. Lena stared at the facility walls, rising like cliffs of eternity. Inside her mind, a faint whisper surfaced. You will come back. The voice was familiar. It was Arvin.
They slipped into black stealth suits and thermal masks. Cross opened the hatch slowly, and a blast of icy air struck their faces like knives of frost. The drop is only 3 meters, Cross said quietly. But the water is cold. Don't panic. Elias went down first, then Miles, then Lena. The moment the water closed around her, Lena's body tensed on instinct. The cold felt like it sank straight into her bones. Elias swam closer and caught her arm. Focus on your breathing. You're okay. Lena nodded, even as her body trembled. Cross entered last. The hatch sealed behind her, and the ship slipped away beneath the surface, its camouflage mode engaging until it vanished into the dark. They swam slowly toward a massive pipe running along the facility wall. Miles checked the small terminal on his wrist. Thermal sensors in this sector are offline for maintenance. 3 minutes. That's our window. Cross drew out a compact laser cutter. After this, there's no way back unless we win. No one answered, because they all already knew. The moment the opening in the pipe was cut through, they crawled inside. The passage was narrow, cold, and pitch dark, the soft clink of metal from their gear echoing faintly along the walls. After several minutes, they reached a solid metal barrier. Cross pressed a circular device against the panel. A small light flickered green. "This is a bypass I wrote myself," he murmured. 15 seconds. Miles nodded grimly. "Too long if it fails." Then a soft sound broke the silence. The panel slid open. But what froze them wasn't the door. It was the sound coming from the corridor ahead. Footsteps. Not many. Just one. Slow. Measured. The kind of steps belonging to someone who knew this place intimately. Everyone froze. Miles raised his weapon. Elias shifted, ready to strike. Cross held her breath. Lena looked forward, and her eyes locked onto the figure standing at the far end of the corridor. A young man, tall, calm posture, a face that felt painfully familiar. Those dark eyes met Lena's directly. No anger, no surprise, just calm. He opened his mouth and spoke softly. "Lena." That voice, the one that had haunted Lena's dreams for years. Elias went rigid. Miles cursed under his breath. Cross swore silently. Lena couldn't move. The name slipped from her lips in a whisper. "Arvin?" The young man smiled. Not a happy smile, not a relieved one, but something sharp, like someone hiding a devastating truth. "I've been waiting for you." Lena took a slow step forward, as if her body moved before her mind could catch up. Elias raised a hand, stopping her. "Lena, don't get too close." Arvin looked at Elias, and for a brief moment, something flickered in his expression. Hatred? Jealousy? Betrayal? It was impossible to tell. Arvin inclined his head slightly, almost like a greeting. "Elias." His tone was flat. "So you're still alive. I thought you had failed. Again." Miles stepped forward half a pace. "Wow, straight to final boss-level drama." Arvin didn't even glance at him, as if Miles were nothing more than background noise. Arvin's gaze returned to Lena. "You came to save me." Lena nodded slowly. "Yes." Arvin smiled faintly. "Funny." Elias stiffened. "Funny how?" Arvin raised a hand, not to attack, but to signal. The corridor lights came on, one by one, revealing Neuralink symbols carved into the walls. The same symbols as the tattoo marks at the napes of Lena's and Elias's necks. Arvin's eyes sharpened. "Do you really think I need saving?" Lena swallowed. "What do you mean?" Arvin replied softly, his voice beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "I'm not imprisoned here." He stepped closer, one measured step at a time. "I run this place." Silence fell. No one moved. No one breathed. Arvin stopped exactly 2 meters in front of Lena. His gaze shifted, cold, calculated. "And I've been waiting for you to finish what we started."